The war is over. The Stonehouse Series, Chapter 7. Those seated around Adam and Eve's table gave space to allow Jonathan, David, and his eldest brother to settle in. When all were seated, David spoke to Jonathan and Eliab. "Ready, brothers?" All three placed their hands on the table, palms down. An entire battlefield appeared before the eyes of Lazarus and the rest. Philistine warriors were assembled for battle. Goliath and his 5 brothers walked among them. Rolling hills and green meadows were covered with chanting fighters. And on one side assembled Israel, the armies of King Saul. On the other were Goliath and the Philistines, and between them lay the valley of Elah, arrayed for mortal combat, a place for blood to flow. Goliath, a massive giant standing almost 10 feet tall, strutted his arrogant self, owning the valley. He beat upon his silver mail armored chest with shovel-sized hands, shouting profanities into the air. His huge head, equal in size to a 5-gallon water bucket, was covered with a bronze helmet gleaming in the sun. Close within his reach were his tools of war, a massive sword sheathed at his hip and a monstrous shield which was held before him by his arm-bearer. In his right hand was a tree-sized spear waiting to be thrown through whoever was fool enough to fight against him. In the prelude to this battle, this scaled-down thing, which sat on Adam's table, equaled in size to a circle of 300 feet in diameter, and the people were about 1 inch tall. And as Laz watched, the moving pitcher was pulled in closer, and Goliath was growing taller until he stood a foot tall, cursing and swearing, strutting back and forth through the valley of Elah. Yet all took place on Adam's table. "Mordecai, how? Where is David?" Near where Lazarus stood, a scrawny teenage shepherd boy emerged, running forward, shouting as he ran. Hardly half the height of the ugly giant, he carried a shepherd's staff in both hands. Laz leaned further out and stared at Goliath's pot-marked face. His shoulder-length, oily black hair and braided beard dyed the color of crimson. His red beard accented his green and yellowish teeth. A necklace made of human thumbs hung around his neck. Lazarus gasped, "Ugh, that's bad. I can smell his breath." David ran towards the giant, holding his shepherd's staff in both hands. Goliath poked at him with his spear, and David deflected the spear with his staff. Goliath shouted at the boy, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And David shouted back, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord God of Israel. Today he has given you into my hand. Today I will strike you down and cut your head smooth off." Lazarus was watching closely, and he saw David drop his shepherd's staff. Then he saw Goliath stagger a bit, and the giant fell forward with his face to the ground at David's feet. "What? What happened? Why did he fall down? Is he getting up again? What happened?" David ran up to the fallen giant, pulling Goliath's own sword from his sheath. He held the sword up in the air and jumped up and down on Goliath's back with both feet. Next, David circled slightly around and lined up at Goliath's neck and chopped his head smooth off. "David, what happened?" David was interrupted from his focus chore, but his hands were still palms down on the table, and he asked Lazarus, "Is there a problem?" The entire battle scene was still there, but it was locked down, not moving, and Lazarus gawked at it, asking, "What happened? Why did he fall down? I didn't see you do anything." David said, "Well, maybe you should have watched a little closer." "Well, I always thought you hit him in the head with a stone from your sling." "I did." "Well, how? I didn't see you do it. And I'm standing right here. I watched you cut the monster's head off." "Well, I had to come in close enough to come up almost under his helmet with the stone. I couldn't let Goliath know I had a sling." "What?" "Here, we'll go back. We're going to back it up. You watch, and we will show you once more." David, Jonathan, and David's oldest brother worked together, focused, and ran the scene back about 2 minutes. And then they played it forward very slowly, 5 seconds, equaling 1 minute. Queen Esther said, "Lazarus, look at what he has in his hands, hidden behind his shepherd's staff." Laz looked intently. There was a sling latch and a loop in David's right hand, with his left hand pulling tight to the basket and stone. All were hidden in his hands or behind the shepherd's staff. As Laz watched, David let go of his staff, swung the sling stone just one quick loop over his head, and released the stone, drove the stone up through Goliath's right eye and into his brain, all before David's staff hit the ground. Laz was amazed. "Wow, that was fast. Goliath never saw it coming." "How? Who?" "Well, Lord God told me how and what to do," David answered. "But I did," Laz spoke in frustration, not understanding. "Goliath was a man of war from his youth. I could not afford to let him see me as a threat, or to see the threat. The target area was small. To kill him, it was needful to have the stone enter deeply, preferably through an eye. I could not give him time to turn his head." "Oh, okay. And his helmet?" "Yes, it protected his entire head. The stone trajectory required an upward angle of at least 20 degrees. He needed to see me as a nothing, navel lint, a boy with a stick, letting me get close, only feet away, close enough to strike." From back the way they came, from where the greeters were, when Laz had first entered through Abraham's Avenue, there arrived a woman. Mordecai asked, "Anna, you have an update? Is there news?" The runner, Benjamin, he has visual contact with Jesus, and from across the Jordan, he is only minutes from delivering his message. "Very good, thank you. Were you able to see Simon?" Lazarus watched a transformation. The woman's face brightened, almost glowed, and her verbal presentation was of a giddy little girl with happy tears running from her eyes. "I saw him, only for a moment, but it was Simon, with perfect skin, and Mordecai. Jesus delivered new fingers to him also. They are beautiful."